What an inspiring conversation. Erin Brockovich and Karina Carvalho. She is with ABC. You Yanks, not that ABC. We're talking about the Australian Broadcasting Company here, and she's a distinguished journalist. Something that stood out to me, Karina, was what Erin was saying about the power of you. I think a lot of us sort of feel like we don't have the power, or we feel like maybe we know about the tools, but we're just one person. And something that keeps coming up here is how, yeah, we may be a part of a team, but we can also inspire others on that team, and it has to begin somewhere. Erin Brockovich didn't accept the explanation that someone else was going to take care of this. If you notice what she said there, she said, it's you. It's the power of you. And yes, teams are important, but the thing is, you can't get that going until you decide to take those first steps. And I think we're all feeling that pressure right now in 2020 to be that agent of change, to take us to that next level. Again, we talk about moving from surviving to thriving. What are you doing? This year has seen this major push to retrain and reskill the global workforce, really, in the face of new government guidelines and pandemic disruption, and the ability of teams to adapt to that new way of working, whatever that new way might be, has become critical to business survival really worldwide. Someone who really understands this challenge is the CEO of EdApp, Darren Winterford. EdApp, if you're not familiar with it, is a mobile training solution which right now delivers about 50,000 lessons per day across over 90 countries, many of them represented. The company's on a mission right now, and they're trying to democratize training for the global workforce, and that's just one challenge that they've taken on this year. Back in April, EdApp announced the Educate All initiative. Now, what this is a partnership with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, which goes by the acronym UNITAR. And in its biggest and most ambitious project yet, EdApp worked to increase access to free, high-quality, and impactful education to those who were furthest behind and with limited opportunities. Within just a few months, this initiative has seen tens of thousands of courses taken. Now, right now, I understand that Darren is in Sydney, and he's going to be joined by Nigel from UNITAR, who's in Hiroshima. They're going to be talking about how they tackled this big project together and how the initiative has improved access to quality education and training around the world.
Thanks, David. Yes, here at EdApp, we are on a mission to democratise training, as you said. Heading into 2021, training is going to be the single most important factor in team success. As we've seen this year, businesses are currently undergoing significant change, navigating these new ways of working in what are unprecedented times. These are some of the biggest changes in operations since World War II. Employees need to be armed with the ability to thrive, the majority of which has to come from adult or workplace training. However, in almost 1/3 of countries, fewer than 5% of people aged 15 and above actually participate in any sort of training post-school. And worse, primarily the quality workplace training is limited to those people lucky enough to work for an employer that values their growth and progression and that can afford large training budgets. We heard about the importance of training from Captain Scott earlier. And how do we inspire the next generation who want to achieve incredible things? Perhaps we aren't all going into space, but the status quo isn't going to cut it. And this has been our challenge and our vision when we set out on this journey a few years ago. We are looking to democratize training, improve access to high quality courses, and build a best-in-class training platform for teams everywhere, of any size, to enable everyone to do the best work of their lives. Enabling learners to take training simply and easily for a few minutes a day on their smartphone and make that training as widely available as possible. And we have been lucky enough to see some success. The smartphone really has become ubiquitous. And today, EdApp is used to power the training of teams of 40, right up to 40,000, right across the globe. But today, we're talking about how adversity often breeds innovation and growth, particularly in training. And I would like to take you on that journey, and a journey that uncovers that, specifically with a client of ours, the United Nations, and their training arm, UNITAR, who use EdApp to educate those with a real lack of resource, and often those left furthest behind around the world. Now, I will give Nigel the chance to speak very soon, but just to provide some background, Nigel runs programs around the world with a focus on conflict or post-conflict areas. Areas like the South Sudan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and he's charged with providing communities and organizations with training that can make a real difference in people's lives. Fundamentally, Nigel is training those people in areas of the world that can be real agents for change, like Erin, for their communities and indeed their countries. So welcome, Nigel.
All right, thank you, Darren. It's fantastic to be here. And, just wow, listening to such inspiring speakers. Captain Kelly. I've always wanted to be an astronaut since I was young. And so just listening to him is just mind-blowing every time. And Erin, her experiences are just so powerful. So it's fantastic to be here. And it's fantastic to see so many people joining with us. And so hello to everyone from Japan. Thanks for those waving. Yay. All right, so I'll start with a little bit of quick background. I really believe that knowledge and the ability to implement change is one of the most valuable things you can share with someone. And fundamentally, that's what we do at UNITAR and here at the Hiroshima office. We work with individuals to teach them new skills and enhance their knowledge so they can go address gaps, implement change, and help improve themselves, their communities, and their organizations. This does mean we're out in the field training people with, as you mentioned, a focus on those who've been left behind, those who don't have the opportunities that those who are more fortunate, like us, often take for granted. People trying to live as conflict and war rages around them, women struggling against cultural norms, people lacking access to services and basic opportunities. We go and we plant the seeds of change with people that can make a difference from the inside. Working in countries, like you mentioned, like Afghanistan and Iraq and across Africa, we've found that key concepts such as gender empowerment, leadership, team development, project management, social entrepreneurship can really empower and transform organizations and communities to address local needs.
So, Nigel, you actually go and run training sessions in these countries. What does that look like?
Yeah, Darren, we do. We'll have workshops in Kabul or Baghdad or in Dakar, and these usually aren't one-off training events. We really want to ensure that our training has a lasting impact. So we take a blended learning approach, mixing together face-to-face workshops with assignments and online modules, which often run over several weeks up to several months long. So for example, we'll have 30 participants attend our workshop, and we'll train them and we'll cover specific concepts, and then they actually go back into their jobs or their communities, and we provide them coaching and mentoring support, and they actually try and implement what we've just taught them as a sort of an on-the-job training.
I think you mentioned it there, Nigel. I often think of your work that you do is really about planting the seeds of change. And, we just heard from Erin on how important that is. Some of the content is really fundamental, isn't it, that you're training on?
Absolutely. It starts with something simple like, what is your role and what rights do you have in society? For example, women in Afghanistan, they face so many challenges, like being allowed to go to school or being allowed to work, being able to go to the doctor or even playing sport. I remember a couple of years ago, we worked with the Afghan national women's and under-18 women's soccer teams. They have to practice almost in secret behind guarded doors. And even then, they can only play on the soccer. They can only play soccer on the concrete because only male players are allowed to play on the grass field. And so we worked with them, on a range of other things, but about empowering them on how to be role models for girls. We've also worked with women and men in rural areas, helping build their capacity so there can be a multiplication effect as they then train others, or they go develop their own initiatives to, for example, provide education for girls or to create employment opportunities for others. And lastly, on the other end of the spectrum, we're working with government agencies to help equip and train their staff to be more effective for developing and implementing policies, for example, on gender equality or trade and finance. If you want a top-down approach to create a supportive and inclusive environment in the country.
Wow, I'd love to focus there for a moment, Nigel, on training government agencies. I don't think that many of us realise that you will actively go and train governments.
Well, yes, that's a large part of what we do. We go and equip those in the positions of power with the skills and the tools to deliver such essential services for positive change. Let me give you an example. A few years back, we were working with some government health officials from Afghanistan, and they'd gone and they'd identified that Kabul's 14 public hospitals lacked equipped emergency wards with trained staff, which meant that the hospitals were actually turning people away who needed critical care, leading to needless deaths. And a typical project management mistake is trying to do everything all at once, not thinking about scoping or task dependencies and iterations. And asking for $10 million to outfit the hospitals with emergency wards is a tough ask. But it's a hard ask when you don't even have a proper plan to do that. And so we worked and we trained the government officials focusing on topics like project management, change management, even leadership and team development skills. So that team was able to effectively function together and then go out and scope down and effectively plan out and deliver that project. And they started with a pilot. And the first pilot ward was built at the Wazir Akbar Khan Hospital in Kabul. And it now provides emergency services to over 20,000 people. And it saves thousands of lives a year.
Wow. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Empower those who have the ability to create positive change at scale, and governments certainly have the ability to do that. We could all probably use that for our own governments. One of the themes we've been talking about today is how adversity breeds innovation and growth. And obviously, if you're relying on in-person workshops in some of the regions that you've described, COVID is going to have obviously a big impact on that. How did that not bring you to a standstill?
Well, I mean, COVID has impacted us all. And, but adversity didn't start with COVID. We're talking about training people who are already in difficult circumstances. I've had learners turn up to workshops, apologizing profusely because they've had to take a different route due to a car bombing. I've been on coaching calls on Skype and they've dropped out because an APC has rumbled past and there's been a bomb scare. Or participants, they've submitted assignments late because they got malaria or they had their laptop stolen. It's these conditions. But yes, the pandemic, COVID, has meant that we've had to move entirely to online and mobile delivery, and we're seeing the big impact that it's having. And it hasn't just been replacing what we were currently doing. We really saw this opportunity as an opportunity to redesign our approach and to think about scaling up. It wasn't just that we're now doing everything online. We thought about how do we maintain the impact and the engagement that we've had so far. And using EdApp now, we're connecting our learners and we're creating communities where they're talking with each other, discussing and working on assignments and doing learning right on their mobile. And we've been able to scale to the reach of our programs. We've now got online programs up and running in Africa and the Middle East, and we're targeting women's entrepreneurship, and we've got one on working with government officials, working on finance policies in response to COVID. So these workshops that would have normally meant a few dozen people attending the workshop have now been able to scale to hundreds and even thousands of learners. And we've got these learners doing the lessons on their mobile. And I've had a couple of people told me that they've been doing lessons on their mobile where they've been stuck at security checkpoints in the back of a taxi. They're joining our webinars. They're sharing and generating ideas in the online discussions with learners from all around the world, while they're in lockdown. And, this probably wouldn't have occurred at this scale pre-pandemic.
Wow. And just to give everyone an idea on how much growth we're talking about, Nigel, the numbers are really staggering. Since the outbreak of COVID, you've moved 100% online, and your division has now scaled training, as I understand it, to over 150 countries with more than 3,000 learners on your programs alone. That is a huge change in terms of scale from where you were.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. COVID has meant that now we're able to reach out to more people from more countries, and with what we've done. It's 150 countries. That's 3/4 of the nations in the world. And, the content that we used to deliver face-to-face has now been able to be surfaced at a scale that, we couldn't imagine before the pandemic. And it's helping contribute to global change and sustainable development. And, as I mentioned before, this isn't about change just for 2020 because of what COVID's done. This is, change that was going to affect our future programs and future design. And, we're talking about the education of potentially hundreds of thousands more people over the coming years as we continue to adapt and expand this approach.
Oh. So whilst the global pandemic, has no doubt been tragic, it has provided the opportunity to accelerate access to quality education for the group that we're talking about, those left furthest behind.
Absolutely, Darren. I remember looking at the data. Globally, more people have access to phones than desktops, and more people have access to mobiles than toilets. There is a big digital divide issue that still needs to be addressed. But to begin our digital outreach to be those who are furthest behind, this year we've been working with your team to allow courses to be taken in low bandwidth situations, to allow for these in-depth discussions and knowledge sharing between learners I mentioned before. And it's, this realization that the device that so many people have in their palms or in their pockets could really become a powerful vehicle for change.
Wow. Which brings us to the Educate All initiative, Nigel. You've described the incredible success you've had at UNITAR scaling and not only surviving COVID-19, but really thriving. But then I remember I came to you with an idea to take it further and to scale some programs to anyone with a smartphone. And you were able to take this idea and gain the support of the UN for the initiative, which is no small feat again. What advice can you give for anyone watching on successfully driving change through organizations? Because, you're obviously quite good at it.
Wow, okay. Advice for successfully driving change through organizations. I think...
Just a small part.
First I'll start off by saying that, as many of you know, most change fails for a number of reasons. But I'll say that, first, it's a team effort. For large-scale change, such that we're talking about, to happen and to stick, while it can start with one person, you need a team. You need a team that dreams as you do. And you need to believe in yourself. I think that's another key thing, is to believe in yourself. You need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe in your team. And just as we've heard from speakers like Erin today, that was so powerful, her message. As you're moving into new uncertain territory in all these uncertain areas, you need to back yourself. You need to believe in yourself. And by extension, you need to believe in your dream. And your dream has to be a vision. You need to think big. What is the impact and what is the urgency for your organization? I often tell, in my workshops, the learners, that when you're looking for the urgency and the impact, how do you show people that the ship is on fire, that, that change needs to happen? So think about the impact for the organization, the impact for the stakeholders, the community, the environment. And of course, to drive change successfully in your organization, the vision needs to resonate with the organizational strategies to get the buy-in from the senior leaders. And your vision needs to inspire people. Even from its name, Educate All, it shows our dream. It shows our vision for helping create a sustainable future where everyone is educated and everyone is empowered. And through that, we were able to get support from this and push out this fantastic initiative.
And certainly getting support for that initiative has had a great effect. Educate All has now extended beyond the UN and in fact has dozens of contributors. In a few short months, we've now had tens of thousands of lessons taken. And again, that's having real impact on lives around the world. So I'm keen to talk about impact, Nigel. You're educating those with the potential to drive real change from within. Who do you find in those countries you mentioned are the change makers? Who are they?
Yes, Darren. I mean, Erin was talking about this, the unsung heroes, the change makers. And as cliche as it may sound, everyone can be a change maker with the right tools and the attitudes. And we heard so many examples, from Erin just then about that. At UNITAR, we mostly work with young people who are passionate about improving their country and who are striving to make a difference in their society. They can be working for government or NGOs or businesses in their communities or for the media. And every change they do, really every change they do, whether it's a personal change, a change in their organization or in their community, it adds up and it makes a difference.
We had a discussion recently with a participant in one of the training programs that was focused on female entrepreneurship in Afghanistan. And her name was Tamana Farwar. And I remember she really symbolized for me the real change agent, the passionate, motivated youth.
Yes. Just for everyone who's listening, Tamana is a young woman from Afghanistan in the northern province of Balkh. And I remember when she first applied to our program, she wrote, that her gender is holding her back. She's been harassed and denied opportunities and passed over just because she's a woman. But because of this, she's really driven to inspire and help women to heights that they never imagined. And Tamana's passion was obvious even then. And she went on to complete our women's leadership and entrepreneurship courses. And then this is the really fantastic part when we were talking with her last week, she took those skills and knowledge, and in the middle of COVID, she actually decided to go help and train other female business owners to not only be great business people, but on how to survive and insulate their businesses in the pandemic. She went and she trained them about marketing and business skills, and she went and helped them to create their online presence, how to do a social media ad, how to reach out to new markets. And also really a key part was developing an online delivery system, because this is something that's not common in Afghanistan. And it's particularly not in this province of Balkh. An online delivery system, it doesn't exist. But because of the work that she did, these female-run businesses were able to reach new markets and thrive through COVID. And when we talked to Tamana last week, and she was telling us about one lady who expanded her noodle factory, because now she's getting online orders from 10 new provinces because of the training, because of the initiative that Tamana led. That was just, so heartwarming. And as you were saying before, we're really seeing in action how to use adversity to thrive and to empower others.
Yeah, I think for me, Tamana personifies, a lot of the themes we've been discussing, here today in the summit. She demonstrates the extraordinary things that can be accomplished by those of us that might be, in relatively ordinary situations. She's taken the opportunity
Absolutely.
that, with the right training, she can help and improve the lives of those around her substantially.
Yes. I mean, talking to her was just, so amazing. And, her story it's inspiring, but, it's just one of the many fantastic, and motivated women and men that I've been able to work with who are in such difficult circumstances. And, as Erin was mentioning, that there's, so many different examples of this. And, I've been lucky to be able to work and contribute to the work of Tamana and other people. And I really do think it's really a case of putting tools in the hands of the right people and just, watch the amazing things that can happen. And I think, while tragic, this pandemic has really provided the urgency required to accelerate the program so that now we'll be hopefully able to reach thousands of people just like Tamana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just as we wrap up here, Nigel, where to next? What other opportunities does this newfound scale that you have, present the United Nations?
Well, this newfound scale has been, fantastic. Digital innovation is a key focus for the United Nations and all its different bodies that you've heard of: UNITAR, UNDP, UNESCO. And in fact, this month, UNITAR launched with UNESCO a learning course on the disinfodemic, which explores disinformation and the importance of truth during COVID-19. And this is coming out as a mobile microlearning on an EdApp, turning a policy, a very good and very well written policy paper, but turning into a mobile learning course that anyone can access and anyone can do anywhere, anytime. And we've also got courses up on road safety and financial inclusion, and we've got plans for courses on nuclear disarmament, disaster risk reduction, and more on women's empowerment. And there's actually one that I'm actually really, really excited about, a big one next year that we're launching, which is focusing on the fourth industrial revolution that I'm sure many of you have heard of. And it's going to actually focus on upskilling and reskilling 1,000 Afghan women, particularly those in rural provinces, just like Tamana, to be able to create websites and code apps with a gender lens on. And these are jobs that can be done from home. This allows them to, they can be earning income and gaining financial independence. They can be working on digital solutions for local problems. As you said, this new has provided an opportunity for scale, and we're working on a whole new scale. And we're really focused on bridging this digital divide and making sure we can reach the furthest behind to deliver these critical skills to help people thrive and ensure a sustainable, prosperous future for everyone.
Nigel, thanks so much for sharing all of this with us. As we've often said, amongst all the technology, fundamentally, it's about getting the right information into the hands of people that want to create change, whether that be a humble team on a construction site in Houston or a community organisation in Haiti. Find those regular people who are capable of doing extraordinary things, arm them with the training and capability they need to then go on and be the change makers. Thanks very much, Nigel.
Thank you, Darren.